Hey, how's it going? Terry Slater here, financial coach, and today I'm going to give you 5 tips to raise your credit score. So, if you haven't pulled your credit report recently, I have another video that I'll link to in the description, and you can also find it up here on how to pull your credit report and how to read it, what's in it. So, I'm not going to talk about all those details today, but what I am going to talk about today is all about your actual credit score. So let's jump right into it here. Okay, 5 tips to improve your credit score. First, let's talk about what it is and where do you find it. One of the first things I want to make sure to highlight is that your credit score is always just a snapshot in time. So what your score is today is different than what it could be maybe even in 1 week if new information gets reported to the credit bureau within the next week or so. So just understand that the number is pretty fluid and it does change pretty often. Generally speaking, your score is going to range anywhere from 300 to 850. And I say generally speaking because it's not actually a hard and fast rule. There are different credit scoring models. And I will also say that the score that you see wherever it is that you find it may not be the same score that a lender is going to see if you are trying to borrow money. But I still think that it's really good to have an idea, a rough range of what your credit score is going to be so that if a lender sees something dramatically different, you're going to be aware of that. And also, just a side note to keep in mind that the higher your credit score is, the lower the interest rate will be on any future lending that you have. So it's really just a way of documenting and proving to a bank or a lender that you've been responsible with paying back your credit in the past. So that's just a little bit about the credit scores. Now, where do you find it? There are many other websites, but the one that I tend to fall back on, and I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but I do use it personally, which is Credit Karma. So Credit Karma will show you a score from 2 separate credit bureaus. There's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian are the 3 major credit bureaus that receive and hold that information. So you can see scores from 2 of those bureaus on creditkarma.com, but then also if you have a bank account or a credit card, there's a lot of those financial institutions now that are linking to a way to show you your credit score. And again, that's free of charge. So the scores are going to vary, but it'll at least give you a frame of reference. And I do just want to make note here, I put it at the bottom of the screen here. Most likely a lot of us have heard of the FICO score. Also pretty popular is the Vantage score. And I pulled this information from debt.org, and that is that FICO has more than 50 different versions of a credit score that it sends to lenders. So that's to say that even a mortgage lender might see a different credit score than a car dealership if you're looking at getting a loan there. So a lot of different scoring models, and the numbers can change depending on where you're getting it. Okay, I just want to show you this quick snapshot. So at the time of this recording, I went on the same day to 4 different sources and pulled my own credit score. So the first one that you'll see is the 829, and it shows right underneath it that that one was calculated using the Vantage score 3.0. The next one, the 841, you can see that that one is a FICO score, and it's FICO score 9. Remember, I said that there's approximately 50, so that's 841, right? That's pretty high compared to, on another website, I found a FICO score of 800. So that one shows that it's based on FICO score 8. And then the last one matches the first one. Those two are both 829. So from 2 different sites, I think the first one's Credit Karma, and I think the last one was from my bank. Now, I also want to note the one that says 841 there. You can kind of see on the arc on the scale there, that one has a range of 250 to 900. I'm going to say it's more traditional to see the range of 300 to 850. That's more common. What you see is the range of scores. So just want you to know that. Again, if I go to a lender and I'm looking for a mortgage and they pull my credit and they come back and they say, we checked your credit and you've got a score of, 815. I'm going to say, okay, sure. That's somewhere near these numbers. That's fine. But if they come back and they say, well, we saw that your score was 780, I might actually ask to see the credit bureau that they pulled just to make sure there's not wrong information on the actual credit report, right? And so in that other video, I talk about more how the different parts of your credit report make up your credit score. Okay, so these are the factors that go into it. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today, and I've got the little bars here to show you how heavy they are as far as importance. So the most important is payment history, meaning do you pay your bills on time? So keep in mind that if you have, let's just say, a car payment and you're 10 days late on that car payment, so chances are you're going to get hit with some fees from the bank, but then you make that payment. That's not typically going to be reported to your credit report as late until it becomes 30 days past due. So on a credit report, you'll see 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 120 days past due. Hopefully you don't see any of those at all, but just know that if they are there, continue to make on-time payments and more of your good payment history will eventually start to outweigh the bad. And then how much you owe, this is called utilization. So if I have a credit card that has a $20,000 limit and I have spent $5,000 on it, I'm using 25% of the available balance on that card. So that's utilization. So that 25%, again, that's $5,000 out of a possible $20,000 on the credit card. Length of credit history, they just want to know how long have you been a responsible borrower. So if you just are establishing credit, you're not going to have a length of credit history like someone who got their first credit card 35 years ago, right? So, and that does also come into play when we're looking at closing accounts too, because you can actually hack that credit history and remove old accounts that actually are weighing in your favor because they're old and they've got a lot of history. Okay, types of credit. This means like a mortgage, a car loan, an installment loan, like student loans are an installment loan. Same with a car loan. Same with a mortgage. They lend you a certain amount and then you pay it back versus credit cards. Those are revolving, right? So you can charge on it, pay it down, charge on it, pay it down continuously. So different types of credit. It does look favorable on your credit report to have a mix of different types of credit. And then new credit, this is requests. So just to, make this really simple, anytime you ask for credit, it sends a signal to lenders that potentially you're having trouble living on the money that you just have, right? Maybe you don't have enough cash or savings, and so you need to borrow money for something. Now, many of us need to borrow money for lots of things, right? If you're buying a home or if you're buying a car, those kind of things, if they're bigger expenses, you may not have all of that money saved. So a lot of us do need to borrow. But what really can hit you, and these things stay on your credit report for 2 years, is if you're constantly asking for new credit, that can start to look bad. Okay, let's get into the tips. So tip number one, and I'm going to say something that you may not hear other places, but I'm going to say keep your balances below 10% of what's available, especially on credit cards. Now again, installment loans, that's where they give you a chunk and then you're paying it back in payments. But on like a credit card, I'm going to say keep it below 10%. And the reason I say that, Many times you'll find advice that says keep it below 30 to 35%. I will tell you that my credit scores increased up over into the 800s once I had my balances down below 10%. And I don't really carry a balance on my cards now. So that's, kind of part of why you're seeing the score that you're seeing. I don't really carry balances. I do let my balance report to the credit bureau before I pay it off in full, though. I don't pay my credit card in full before the bill comes due, because then it would actually show as I'm not using it at all on a credit report. Okay, that's tip number 1. Keep your balances super low. I say below 10% if you really want a good score. Tip number 2, again, this is just make every single payment on time. It's worth noting that if you do have dings in the past, the farther they are in the past, the better. Again, it's just you're showing a history of being a responsible borrower, and responsible just means, do you pay your bills on time? You're paying everything back and you're paying it in time. So negative history will stay on your credit report for 7 years. Also, good positive history stays on your credit report for 10 years. So these are all different things that you should just be aware of as well. Okay, tip number 3, I'm just going to advise again, caution on applying for new credit. As I've already explained, if you continue to ask for more credit cards or loans for things, it can kind of start to raise some red flags, especially if you start borrowing a lot of money or asking for a lot of credit cards. It can kind of look like what's going on there, right? So if it just raises some questions. Now, another thing to note is that it does go on your credit report, even if you're not approved. It still shows that you requested credit. So these things stay on your credit report for 2 years whenever you request new credit. And then also, if you are approved, it can reduce the average length of credit history. So if you have some credit cards that you've had for maybe like 20 years and then 10 years, and then boom, you go out and you open a new credit card, now that one's less than 1 year, they actually will average what your credit history looks like as far as the length. So that's also important to note when you close accounts, if they're old, right? So those are things that all come into play when you're looking at the length of time that you've got established credit history. And then another thing that could be a positive, depends on really how you look at it. Things can hit different parts of your credit report, like in different ways. So although you might have a ding, like it's going to deduct some points from your score for applying for new credit, maybe now you get a new credit card that has a $10,000 line of credit and you don't use it. So now you actually have taken your utilization ratio, the amount available to you versus what you're borrowing, and you've increased that gap, right? So you may have been borrowing, let's say 20% of your overall available, and now that you've asked for this new credit card with a new balance, it's going to take that percent that you owe and make it smaller. So some things can actually weigh 2 different ways. You can deduct some points for this and maybe add some points for that. So just all new things to be aware of as well. Okay, tip number 4, I've mentioned this already a couple times. Don't close accounts even when they're paid off. But there's always a but, there's a caveat. Whatever feels good to you. If you have an account that you've paid off, and you have concerns that you're going to increase the debt again. So maybe you've gotten something paid off, but you're just kind of worried that a consolidation loan is a great example. If you get a consolidation loan and you use that money to pay off all your credit cards, now you just owe on the consolidation loan. That's your one debt. But if you don't, shred those credit cards or get rid of them, you might end up charging on your credit cards again. And now you've got the consolidation loan and credit card debt stacking up again. You don't have to close the credit account. You can just get rid of the card and not be using it. But If you are at all concerned about fraud or anything like that, you know, if it makes you uneasy to have credit accounts just out there and floating, then you can close them. But do also know that that's going to take away a few things. If you had available credit, your utilization ratio is going to change again. It's probably going to negatively impact you. And again, you're going to wipe out that history on the account too, which will also be a slightly negative impact. So those are just some things to be aware of when thinking about closing an account or keeping it open. So the tip here, I say don't close accounts. But again, if you need to or want to, by all means, go right ahead. Just know what the impacts might be to your score. Okay, and then tip number 5, make sure that you correct any errors. So I'm not really talking about correcting an error in your score, but correcting any errors on your credit report. So if a score seems low, or even if you just haven't looked at your credit report in a long time, get one, pull it. It doesn't impact your score when you pull your credit report. When you pull your credit report, it does not impact your score. And just double check and make sure that there's no errors on there, no accounts that you're not aware of. Maybe, you know, if there's something that shows you had late payments and you don't recall ever being late on it, you can dispute those things. And then it's up to the lender to actually prove that. So make sure that you get any kind of errors on your credit report corrected. And then I'm going to give you one last final bonus tip, again, always with caution. But you can piggyback on somebody else's good credit. Here's how this works. So I'm the person with the good credit, and what I have done is I have added my adult daughter onto my credit card as an authorized user. Just one credit card, I put her as an authorized user. Did I send her a credit card to use? Absolutely not. But what happens is that it will now report to her credit bureau because I've added her as an authorized user. So she's not responsible for the balance on that card. I don't carry one anyway, so that's fine. And I also am not giving her a credit card, so she cannot spend on that account, but she is authorized as a user. Now, if you're in the reverse where you want to piggyback off of somebody else's good credit, you can ask to be added as an authorized user, same situation. But what I want to caution you about is that if that person does ever miss any payments, or if something happens negatively impacting the account that they added you onto as an authorized user, again, you're not responsible financially for the payments, but if they do fall behind, it will show up on your credit report. So you've got to make sure that if this is the route you're going, you really, really trust that the person that you're piggybacking off of has got stellar credit and that they're not at risk of missing any payments. So anyway, hopefully that is another helpful tip. It's not, you know, the most ideal thing for everybody, but it is another option. So, okay, wanted to keep this one short, sweet, and to the point. I've got lots of links in the description where you can find the other video that talks about your credit report, and also some links on where you can get your credit report and score for free. Please don't ever pay for that. So let me know if you have any questions, type them in the comments. I would love to hear, and I will see you next time. All right, take care. Bye.